April 14th, 1943. Deep in the basement of Pearl Harbor's 14th Naval District Administration Building, a young Navy cryptanalyst hunches over sheets of intercepted radio traffic, and his heart stops. The 5-digit number groups have just revealed something extraordinary. Message NTF 131755, transmitted from Rabaul in Japanese naval cipher JN-25D, contains the travel itinerary of Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto himself, the architect of Pearl Harbor, Japan's most brilliant naval strategist, the man Americans blame for dragging their nation into war. Every detail is there: times, locations, aircraft types. 4 days from now, at precisely 9:45 in the morning local time, Yamamoto will be flying in a vulnerable medium bomber from Rabaul to Balalai Airfield on Bougainville Island. The cryptanalyst's hands tremble slightly as he triple-checks his work. This intelligence is gold, and using it could destroy America's greatest weapon in the Pacific. Within hours, the decoded message reaches Admiral Chester Nimitz, Commander-in-Chief of the United States Pacific Fleet. The intelligence is extraordinary, almost too perfect, but Nimitz knows something his subordinates don't fully grasp yet. Acting on this information could destroy America's single most valuable weapon in the Pacific. The secret is called magic, and it represents years of painstaking cryptanalysis against Japan's highest-level military codes. American codebreakers have successfully penetrated JN-25, the Japanese Navy's primary operational cipher, a code consisting of approximately 33,000 5-digit number groups, each representing words or phrases. Breaking this cipher required brilliant mathematicians, linguists fluent in Japanese, IBM punch card tabulating machines, and thousands of hours of analysis. By early 1942, Station Hypo at Pearl Harbor could decrypt substantial portions of Japanese naval communications within hours of interception. The value of this capability cannot be overstated. Magic intelligence had enabled the decisive American victory at Midway in June 1942, when foreknowledge of Japanese battle plans allowed Nimitz to position his 3 aircraft carriers in a devastating ambush that destroyed 4 Japanese carriers and turned the tide of the Pacific War. Throughout the Guadalcanal campaign and beyond, magic gave American commanders insights into Japanese ship movements, supply convoys, reinforcement schedules, and strategic intentions. It was the closest thing to reading the enemy's mind that warfare had ever produced. And now Admiral Nimitz faces a terrible choice. Using this intelligence to eliminate Yamamoto might win the war faster, or it might blind America completely. The strategic calculus is brutal. If American fighters appear at exactly the right time and place to intercept Yamamoto's flight, a flight that will take him closer to American lines than he has ever ventured, Japanese intelligence officers will ask uncomfortable questions. How did the Americans know? The Pacific Ocean spans 64 million square miles. The chances of accidentally encountering a specific aircraft at a specific location on a specific morning are effectively 0. A too-perfect ambush will scream compromised codes to even moderately competent enemy analysts. The Japanese would change JN-25 immediately, probably upgrading to an entirely new cipher system. American codebreakers would be blind, potentially for months or years. Future operations like the Battle of the Philippine Sea, the liberation of the Philippines, the advance toward Japan itself, all would proceed without the intelligence advantage that magic provides. American casualties would skyrocket. The war might drag on for years. What happens next will determine the course of the Pacific War. The debate reaches the highest levels of American leadership. Intelligence officers plead caution. The British are particularly opposed. Prime Minister Winston Churchill himself protests to President Roosevelt against authorizing the mission. The British have their own ultra-secret code-breaking program against German Enigma traffic, and they understand viscerally how catastrophic it would be to lose that capability. Churchill's concerns are blunt. Yamamoto, while talented, is simply one man. Japan's military machine will function without him. But lose magic, and you lose the ability to predict Japanese operations across the entire Pacific theater. American naval intelligence officers share these concerns. They've worked too hard building magic to see it thrown away on a single assassination. They propose compromises, wait for another opportunity, use conventional reconnaissance, claim that coast watchers spotted Yamamoto's aircraft, but other voices argue for action, and their argument is compelling. Yamamoto isn't just another admiral. He's the strategic genius who conceived the carrier-based attack on Pearl Harbor, who understands American military thinking better than any other Japanese officer, who studied at Harvard University and served as naval attaché in Washington. He knows America's industrial capacity better than his own government does. His operational planning is consistently more sophisticated than that of his peers. Most critically, Yamamoto commands the respect and devotion of the entire Japanese Navy. His presence alone sustains Japanese morale in the face of mounting losses. The intelligence community builds a profile. Yamamoto is 59 years old, a veteran of the Battle of Tsushima, where he lost 2 fingers from his left hand. He's a strategic thinker who opposed war with America from the beginning, knowing that Japan could not win a protracted conflict. Yet, once ordered to plan the attack on Pearl Harbor, he executed with devastating effectiveness. He's not a fanatic. He's a professional officer who understands mathematics and industrial economics. That makes him dangerous in ways that fanatical commanders are not. Yamamoto thinks several moves ahead, plans for contingencies, and adjusts strategies based on changing realities. His death would deprive Japan of its best operational mind at a critical moment when American forces are pushing through the Solomons and preparing for major offensives across the Central Pacific. The final decision lands on President Franklin Roosevelt's desk. Roosevelt makes the call. Secretary of the Navy Frank Knox receives terse instructions. Get Yamamoto. The President has decided that removing Japan's premier naval strategist is worth the enormous gamble. It's a calculated risk at the highest level of warfare, trading possible future intelligence advantages for the certain elimination of a brilliant enemy commander. Roosevelt believes, or hopes, that with proper cover stories and operational security, magic can survive the exposure. But he knows he's rolling the dice with America's most valuable secret. The authorization flows down through Admiral Nimitz to Admiral William Halsey, commander of South Pacific Forces, to Rear Admiral Mark Mitcher, who controls air assets in the Solomons. Planning for Operation Vengeance begins immediately. The mission requirements are extraordinarily demanding. Yamamoto's flight will depart Rabaul at 8:10 in the morning on April 18th, flying in 2 Mitsubishi G4M bombers escorted by 6 Zero fighters. The flight will travel approximately 315 miles to Balalai Airfield, scheduled to arrive at 9:45 local time. To intercept, American fighters must fly approximately 435 miles from Guadalcanal to a point along Yamamoto's flight path near Bougainville. The round trip would exceed 860 miles, far beyond the combat radius of any fighter based at Henderson Field on Guadalcanal. Navy and Marine Corps fighters, the F-4F Wildcat and F-4U Corsair, cannot make the distance. They lack the range and endurance for such an extended mission. Only one aircraft in the American inventory can reach the intercept point and return. the Army Air Force's Lockheed P-38 Lightning. This twin-boom, twin-engine fighter, powered by two Allison V-1710 engines, has the range when equipped with external fuel tanks. The P-38 carries four 50-caliber machine guns and one 20-millimeter cannon, concentrated in the nose, devastating firepower with no convergence issues. It can cruise at speeds exceeding 300 miles per hour and climb rapidly when needed. The 339th Fighter Squadron of the 347th Fighter Group, based at Henderson Field, flies P-38s and will execute the mission. Major John Mitchell, a veteran P-38 pilot with exceptional navigation skills, receives command of the operation. The mission requirements are precise to the minute. The intercepting force must fly at wave-top level, no more than 50 feet above the ocean, to avoid detection by Japanese radar and coast-watching stations scattered throughout the Solomon Islands. Radio silence must be absolute. Navigation must be perfect across hundreds of miles of open ocean with no landmarks, timing the arrival to intercept Yamamoto's flight at exactly the moment when it descends toward Balale Airfield. Even with external fuel tanks, the P-38s will have minimal fuel reserves. Any combat maneuvering, any deviation from optimal flight paths, any delay could leave American pilots ditching in enemy-controlled waters hundreds of miles from friendly territory. There's no margin for error. Mitchell plans meticulously. 18 P-38s will launch from Henderson Field, one flight of 4 aircraft designated as the Killer Flight, with Captain Thomas Lanphier as leader, and 14 aircraft providing top cover and blocking any Japanese fighters that might interfere. Each P-38 will carry 2 external fuel tanks, a 165-gallon tank under one wing and a 330-gallon tank under the other. These tanks, rushed to Guadalcanal from New Guinea specifically for this mission, will provide the range needed. Pilots will fly at optimal cruise settings, carefully managed manifold pressure and propeller RPM to maximize fuel efficiency without sacrificing the ability to accelerate rapidly when contact occurs. The briefing on April 17th is remarkable for what it doesn't reveal. Pilots are told that Australian coast watchers have observed a high-ranking Japanese officer boarding an aircraft at Rabaul. The target's identity remains classified until just before takeoff. Only at the last moment before engine start do Mitchell's pilots learn their target is Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto himself. The revelation electrifies the squadron. This isn't just another fighter sweep or bomber escort. This is vengeance for Pearl Harbor. This is a chance to eliminate the man personally responsible for dragging America into war. Every pilot understands the stakes. April 18th, 1943. 07:35 hours local time. 18 P-38 Lightnings thunder down Henderson Field's runway, their twin Allison engines roaring, heavily laden with fuel tanks. One aircraft aborts immediately with mechanical issues. Another turns back shortly after takeoff. 16 continue, dropping to 50 feet above the ocean's surface, maintaining strict radio silence, navigating by dead reckoning toward an intercept point 435 miles northwest. Major Mitchell leads with consummate skill, calculating winds, drift, fuel consumption, time to target factors with the precision of an experienced navigator. There are no second chances. Arrive too early, and Japanese spotters will alert Yamamoto to turn back. Arrive too late, and he'll already be on the ground, protected by anti-aircraft guns and alert defenders. The flight is grueling. Skimming wave tops for over 2 hours tests pilot endurance and concentration. One moment of inattention could send a P-38 cartwheeling into the ocean at 300 miles per hour. 2 more aircraft abort. One fails to drop external tanks, making it too slow and vulnerable. Another's fuel system malfunctions. 14 P-38s continue, crossing hundreds of miles of empty Pacific under absolute radio silence. Mitchell adjusts course minutely based on wind estimates and timing calculations. The mathematics must be perfect. Every mile off course, every minute delayed, reduces their chances of interception and survival. Then, at exactly 9:33 local time, 12 minutes ahead of Yamamoto's scheduled landing, they spot them. Two Japanese G-4M bombers, escorted by 6 Zero fighters, descend toward Balalai from altitude. The timing is so precise that Japanese pilots initially mistake the approaching P-38s for expected American fighters, making a routine sweep of the area. That misidentification costs crucial seconds. By the time Japanese escorts react, American fighters are already accelerating to attack speed. External tanks tumbling away, guns charging, closing on the bombers. Captain Thomas Lanphier and Lieutenant Rex Barber lead the killer flight in a slashing attack. Lanphier engages the Zero escorts, turning into them, forcing them away from the bombers. Barber goes for the lead G-4M, Yamamoto's aircraft, closing from behind and below, his concentrated nose armament tearing into the bomber's left engine and fuselage. The G-4M, called Betty by Americans, is notoriously vulnerable. Its fuel tanks are unprotected, earning it the nickname one-shot lighter. Barber's 50-caliber rounds and 20-millimeter cannon shells rip through the bomber's structure. The left engine begins streaming smoke. The aircraft shudders, losing altitude, pilot struggling for control. What happens in the next seconds will change the course of the Pacific War. Yamamoto's bomber never reaches the airfield. Trailing fire and smoke, it crashes into dense jungle north of Buin, the impact catastrophic. The second bomber, carrying Yamamoto's chief of staff, Admiral Matome Ugaki, attempts emergency water landing under fire from multiple P-38s. It hits the ocean hard. Most aboard perish, though Ugaki and 2 others survive. The entire engagement lasts perhaps 90 seconds, a lightning-fast collision of aircraft moving at combat speeds, guns blazing, aircraft falling from the sky. One P-38 is damaged by Zero fighters, its pilot nursing a crippled aircraft back toward Guadalcanal. Japanese Zeros, initially surprised, mount fierce resistance but are overwhelmed by the American top cover. The surviving P-38s, fuel gauges reading dangerously low, break off and turn southeast. The return flight is desperate. With no remaining margin for navigation errors or headwinds, American pilots fly straight-line courses at optimal cruise settings, constantly checking fuel gauges, calculating remaining range against distance to Henderson Field. They've been airborne for hours. Combat maneuvering consumed precious fuel. Some aircraft are showing battle damage. Radio silence breaks only when Henderson comes within range, and pilots report fuel states approaching emergency levels. Every P-38 lands safely, though several shut down engines on the runway, their tanks reading near empty. The mission has succeeded spectacularly. But now comes the most dangerous phase of all. The following day, Japanese search teams locate the crash site. They find Admiral Yamamoto still strapped in his seat beneath a tree, thrown from the aircraft upon impact, his white-gloved hand clutching his katana sword. The medical examination reveals 2 gunshot wounds, one to his jaw, another to his shoulder. The medical officer determines that Yamamoto died before the crash, struck by machine gun fire during the attack. His body is cremated at Buin, and his ashes returned to Tokyo aboard the battleship Musashi, the vessel he once commanded. Japan announces nothing publicly for over a month, the government wrestling with how to present the loss of their most respected naval commander. Meanwhile, American military leadership initiates elaborate deception measures. The pilots of Operation Vengeance receive strict orders regarding what they can and cannot discuss. They're told that Australian coast watchers on Bougainville spotted Yamamoto's aircraft and radioed the information. A plausible cover story, since such coast-watching networks did exist throughout the Solomons. In reality, the coast watchers did observe Yamamoto's flight, but their report arrived too late to be the primary intelligence source. Admiral Halsey authorizes additional long-range P-38 fighter sweeps to the Shortland Islands in the days following April 18th, selling the idea that the Yamamoto intercept was simply one lucky strike among many routine missions rather than a precisely targeted assassination based on decoded intelligence. But operational security proves imperfect. While the pilots are still in New Zealand on leave, an Associated Press war correspondent named J. Norman Lodge approaches them on a golf course. Lodge has already heard details about the mission through military scuttlebutt. Captain Lanphier and Lieutenant Barber, perhaps not fully understanding the security implications, discuss the operation relatively freely. Lodge files a story on May 11, 1943, days before Japan even announces Yamamoto's death publicly. While Lodge's article doesn't explicitly mention code-breaking, it contains enough operational details to alarm military censors. The story is initially suppressed, but the damage is partially done. Then something even worse happens. An even more serious security breach occurs in October 1943 when Time magazine publishes an article about Operation Vengeance, naming Lanphier specifically. The United States Navy considers this a catastrophic breach of operational security. Major John Mitchell's nomination for the Medal of Honor is downgraded to the Navy Cross, in part because publicizing such a high award would draw additional attention to the operation. Intelligence officers watch Japanese communications anxiously, searching for any indication that Japan suspects their codes have been compromised. Remarkably, Japanese signals continue flowing in JN-25, suggesting that Japanese intelligence has not connected the intercept with code breaking. But why? The Japanese response to Yamamoto's death reveals why the gamble succeeds. Japanese military culture, shaped by concepts of spirit and will, has difficulty accepting that American technological and intelligence capabilities could achieve such precision. Instead, Japanese analysts attribute the intercept to operational error. Yamamoto flying too close to American lines, coast watchers happening to spot his aircraft, and opportunistic American fighters capitalizing on an unexpected sighting. This explanation preserves Japanese beliefs about their operational security while fitting their understanding of American capabilities. Japanese Naval General Staff considers changing codes but decides against immediate action. They note that Yamamoto's flight path was unnecessarily risky and that escorts should have been more numerous. The human tendency to rationalize unexpected events within existing frameworks works in America's favor. Japan never realizes the truth. The full story of Magic and Operation Vengeance remains classified throughout the war. The American public learns nothing beyond vague reports that Yamamoto died in combat operations. Even after Japan surrenders in August 1945, American intelligence officers want to maintain secrecy, hoping to continue exploiting Japanese codes during the post-war occupation. Only on September 10, 1945, after VJ Day, does the Associated Press finally publish the complete story, including the code-breaking basis for the mission. By then, the war is over, and the secret no longer matters for immediate operations. The impact of Yamamoto's death on Japan's war effort is profound and multifaceted. While Japan's military machine continues functioning, the loss of their most strategically sophisticated admiral at a critical moment proves irreplaceable. Yamamoto's successor, Admiral Minechi Koga, lacks his predecessor's operational creativity and international experience. Japanese naval operations after April 1943 show less strategic coherence and more rigid adherence to doctrine, exactly the kind of predictable decision-making that American commanders can exploit. The psychological impact on the Japanese Navy is devastating. Morale, already stressed by the defeat at Midway and the grinding attrition of Guadalcanal, suffers another blow. Yamamoto was more than a commander. He was a symbol of Japanese naval excellence, a leader whose judgment was trusted even by officers who disagreed with his strategic assessments. His loss creates a void that no successor can fill. For American forces, Yamamoto's elimination provides an enormous morale boost at exactly the right moment. Guadalcanal has just been secured after 6 months of brutal combat. American forces are preparing to advance further through the Solomons toward Rabaul. The successful mission demonstrates that America can strike with precision against Japan's highest leadership, that intelligence and planning can overcome distance and defensive preparations, that vengeance for Pearl Harbor is not just rhetoric, but achievable reality. American newspapers, once they're allowed to report the story, celebrate the operation as proof of American technical and tactical superiority. The narrative reinforces public support for the war effort and validates the enormous industrial and military mobilization required to fight in the Pacific. Most remarkably, magic survives. Japanese codes remain compromised throughout the remainder of the war. American codebreakers continue reading Japanese naval communications through 1945, providing critical intelligence for the Battle of the Philippine Sea, the Marianas Turkey Shoot, the liberation of the Philippines, and operations leading to Iwo Jima and Okinawa. The intelligence advantage that might have been destroyed by Operation Vengeance instead persists, shortening the war and saving countless American lives. The gamble succeeds beyond even optimistic predictions. President Roosevelt's decision to risk America's greatest secret in exchange for eliminating Japan's greatest admiral proves strategically sound, one of those rare historical moments where an enormous risk yields equivalent rewards without the catastrophic downside. But there was one final controversy that would echo for decades. The debate over who actually shot down Yamamoto's aircraft becomes acrimonious. Captain Thomas Lanphier claims credit, writing articles and giving interviews asserting his kill. Lieutenant Rex Barber disputes this claim, providing tactical analysis and witness statements suggesting his was the aircraft that inflicted fatal damage. The debate divides the surviving pilots of Operation Vengeance. Analysis of the crash site, examination of bullet trajectories, review of gun camera footage, and mission reports all support Barber's account. Yet newspaper obituaries and popular histories often credit Lanphier. The dispute overshadows the larger strategic significance that 18 American pilots flew one of the most precisely executed intercept missions in aviation history, eliminating a crucial enemy commander while protecting intelligence capabilities that helped win the war. The lessons of Operation Vengeance resonate through intelligence and military history. The mission demonstrates the extraordinary value of signals intelligence and the equally extraordinary risks required to exploit that intelligence without compromising its sources. Modern intelligence operations still grapple with this fundamental tension, using intelligence to achieve immediate tactical gains versus preserving intelligence capabilities for long-term strategic advantage. Operation Vengeance succeeded because of meticulous operational security, plausible cover stories, enemy preconceptions that discouraged proper security analysis, and perhaps a measure of good fortune. The decision could easily have gone the other way. What Japan never imagined was that America would gamble its most valuable intelligence asset on a single assassination mission. Japanese military culture, focused on operational excellence and tactical proficiency, underestimated how deeply Americans valued removing the architect of Pearl Harbor. Japanese intelligence, confident in their codes and trained to think in terms of operational patterns rather than cryptographic vulnerability, failed to recognize the implications of a too-perfect intercept. Japanese strategic thinking, which accepted that certain American technical capabilities were superior, nevertheless couldn't conceive that those capabilities extended to real-time decryption of their highest-level military communications. Every assumption led Japanese intelligence away from the correct conclusion that their most secure codes had been thoroughly compromised for over a year. The story of Operation Vengeance is ultimately about calculated risk at the highest levels of warfare. It's about President Roosevelt deciding that eliminating one brilliant enemy commander was worth potentially blinding American intelligence for the remainder of the war. It's about Admiral Nimitz authorizing a mission that could cost him the intelligence advantage that had won the Battle of Midway. It's about 18 P-38 pilots flying at wave-top height for over 4 hours round-trip to intercept a target based on intelligence so precise it seemed too good to be true. It's about American ingenuity, Japanese assumptions, and the fog of war that sometimes allows the audacious to succeed beyond reason. Most of all, it's about the hidden dimensions of warfare, the intelligence battles, the cryptographic struggles, the decision-making under uncertainty that determines outcomes long before ships clash or aircraft engage. And it's about one irreversible moment when America decided the risk was worth it. The day America eliminated Yamamoto wasn't just the removal of Japan's finest naval strategist. It was America declaring that it would risk everything, even its greatest secret, to strike at the heart of enemy leadership. It was intelligence professionals watching in horror and hope as their most valuable capability was potentially sacrificed for a single mission. It was pilots executing flawlessly under impossible circumstances. And it was Japan, supremely confident in their codes and their operational security, never imagining that Americans were reading their mail, right up until a flight of P-38 Lightnings materialized from nowhere at exactly the right time and place, as if guided by divine providence or something far more dangerous. Enemy cryptanalysts who had cracked their most secure communications and were reading every word. And that's going to be the end of the video, my friends. If you want more untold missions where one decision changed the entire war, subscribe and don't forget to smash that like button. We bring you the stories other documentaries skip, the secrets, the gambles, the impossible choices that shaped history.